I kept running. I wanted to get to the nearest town. I ran faster, but the thoughts of Annabelle haunted my mind. I reached the first few buildings and I gazed up at the sky. Daylight was already coming around and I laughed. A hint of insanity starting to break through my nightmare. I walked past the local butcher shop and smiled, walking toward an alley. I sat down, leaning against the wall, and I sighed. I felt worse. My thoughts spun and I looked around. I was drenched with blood and I knew that I had to clean myself up first. The sun was up by now, and I just sat in the alley silently. Finally I stood up. It was difficult, but I looked around. The sound of children laughing and drunken piano playing annoyed me. Something snapped inside of me at that moment. Slowly I stumbled out into the sunlight. My thoughts were blurred, and I sighed. I began to think to myself. The thought stayed glued to my thoughts as I ushered myself past a town tavern. The wall seemed to be bursting at the seams with sounds of laughter. I walked to the door, opened it, and walked inside. I locked the door shut behind me as a Cheshire grin slid across my face. I gazed around, my thoughts scattered, shooting in different directions. My heart was racing. I could feel the adrenaline gushing through my veins. I sat at the bar, got a drink. I played with the rim of the glass, trying to figure out why I was here. I felt a knife in my pocket and picked up my drink. I swiftly chugged it down to steady my nerves. I looked over my glass and in the back of the bar saw her. Annabelle was drenched with blood. She looked as though she was screaming and crying. She looked upset and hurt. I just grinned again and sat my drink down. I took a step to the closest person near me. He was tall, a young man. His hair was dark and so were his eyes. He was wearing a white shirt with black pants as I grabbed his shoulder from behind. What am I doing? I tried to figure out what my future actions were going to be. Chapter 4, The Murderer. Had it only been a different night, a different place, and a different kind of man passing the threshold of that innocent pub, drunk piano playing, the events that transpired at that point would have been undoubtedly different. I can only guess if anyone outside that place had a clue when the exclamations of mirth became the desperate screams of the helpless begging for their very lives. If I am unable to be happy, no one should ever be able to feel joy again. As I placed a knife to his throat and smiled, I leaned closer to his ear and whispered these 5 macabre words. Are you ready to die? The man stood perfectly still. Fear shot through his body as I slid the blade across his throat. Blood gushed down, and I went to another man. I stabbed him in the chest 4 or 5 times. Women screamed and the other patrons ran to the door. I laughed and stabbed 5 more people. I noticed one man slipping out of the tavern window. He went out onto the balcony and I just smiled widely to myself as I watched the dying victim's wraith. I mused as the blood dripped down my body from the lifeless murders. I unlocked the door and stumbled out into the road, thinking of my killings. I laughed while thinking this. Without any guilt, I felt like I was having the best time of my life. Chapter 5. I wandered out into the daylight, slipping past the glances at the murmurs of the townspeople. The lack of guilt twisted deep inside me, made me laugh. I couldn't help but feel invincible. I can't believe I did that, but at the same time, I actually can. I laughed hysterically and thought more about what I had done. My satisfaction was amazing. I closed my eyes, taking deep breaths. and thoughts rushed through, rushed my mind about my insanity. It all started when Annabelle had died. I relaxed thinking about Annabelle's voice as I walked further down the road. Could her love save me from this? Could Annabelle end my insanity? I began to think about these questions. I felt something snap inside of me. I felt that something was creeping up my spine. The feeling took over my mind, and I turned. In my own mind, I cursed everyone who thinks that I would remotely consider stopping the monster I have become now. For the rest of the day, I wandered the town. Think about everything that just taken place in the tavern. The thoughts filled my mind. The blood and the grisly murder scene just didn't seem to faze me. I kept walking. The sun was fading, and the sounds of joy seemed to disappear with the rise of the darkness.